Hello, court killers. It is Terry Dussault, part of your duo team here with JT.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I can't keep track of, what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But I unscrewed a wine bottle because I'm classy like that. And it's time to get into this.
That's okay. That's why we love you. And we are covering, there's going to be 3 different cases covered. And we have a special, fabulous guest here with us today.
Hello, it's Mike from Brew Crime podcast. JT's other podcast.
So this is the JT Menage a Trois, is what this is.
Well, I can't say I didn't ask for it, and I can't say I don't like it. So
you got your wine, your brew, and you got JT going both ways. So we're all good.
Sounds like a typical Friday night.
Well, that's about as lighthearted as we get to be today, because as y'all all know, we're covering Angels of Death.
Yes.
And JT's case was rough, and I'm sure this is going to be rough, and mine will be rough.
I'm going to just tell you, mine's a couple of steps up from JT's because mine involved children.
So no.
So I'm just going to tell you, grab your drink, grab your gummies, grab whatever you need to grab, because this bitch be rough.
Just don't grab mushrooms.
Yeah, right.
Why can't I grab those?
You don't want to be on psychedelics and true crime. Bad combo.
Something tells me there's experience there.
No, there isn't.
Ask about it.
But still, ooh.
We'll have to try that. Well, I decided to go outside of my realm today, and I am drinking 19 Crimes Snoop Dogg Cali Blanc. So,
but how
I
is
wish
it?
I had a water bong sound effect ready to go.
And I'm like, I got a little Snoop Dogg. So what I love is their tasting notes of chill attitude, bold refreshment with herbal, bright citrus flavors with a unique and distinct floral finish from jail.
It just needs some skunky notes to it.
Why do I feel like they just described what it would taste like if you licked Snoop Dogg's arm?
Only after he's been hanging out with Martha.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
She would give the full scent.
I love the fact that they're both best friends. I really do. That is I would watch that movie.
And I love it.
Yeah. I think it's bizarre, but I think it also tells us that you can be from 2 different backgrounds, have 2 different beliefs, and you can still find common ground.
Yeah.
And be buds.
And I would love to watch a movie that was just like a fake rom-com between 2 of them.
Oh, I agree.
What if their belief system is not that different and Martha's just putting us on this entire time?
That would not surprise me.
I'm just saying, like,
she's the criminal.
She's the one who went to jail, right? So
has Snoop Dogg?
One of my favorite.
I thought Snoop Dogg has gone to jail, but I thought in his younger days.
So. He had a
some juvenile stuff.
Maybe, but I think he was brought to court for some really serious stuff, but it didn't go through. So
didn't stick.
One
of my favorite jokes of all time, and I can't remember who told it, but I know that it was on the Comedy Central roast of Justin Bieber. And Snoop Dogg was on stage, and a couple other rappers were on stage and things like that. And the person was at the podium, and he was like, it's really weird that out of everybody on this stage, Martha, you're the only one who's been in prison. And I lost it.
Okay, well, I just gave it a goog. Snoop Dogg was convicted of a felony drug possession and possession for sale in 1990.
Probation?
Okay, I didn't give a goog of what his sentence was. I just gave a goog of what his charges were. And then he was acquitted of murder charges.
Yeah. Drug
He was part
charges
of
are
the
such a
Crips.
joke.
Not in Texas. Are you kidding?
Oh, I
You got
know.
a half a joint, you can go to prison for 50
That's what I'm
years.
talking about. It's a joke, though. Yeah.
You can kill a kid and get less time in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And well, George Abbott killed a lot of people. And boy, he's still out of prison. I said it. I don't care.
We've had a lot of George Abbott stuff on recent episodes. That's okay.
We have.
You know what? He's earned it. He's earned it. Just be prepared and be thankful that Greg Abbott is nowhere in this case today. Because if he was, good. I don't even know what it would have been, because I was born and raised in Texas. And the fact that I did not know about this case until about 2 months ago is shocking, because it did not get a lot of publicity in Texas.
Interesting. Who shut that down?
It is scary. So just grab your drinks, grab your bong, grab whatever. If I only lived in a place I could grab a bong legally, I would.
I can go buy one from the government here. So.
Yeah, that's because you live in Canada and you have rights there. We don't have rights in Texas, and I'm a female. I have no rights. They own me.
Yeah. See, I bared my arms.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't have a gun, but I bared my arms.
Guns have more rights here.
I say I am a gun-toting Texan, but that doesn't mean you should have certain guns.
That gun has more rights than you do.
It does.
And it's the worst.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because one day I do believe in karma, and karma will come back to get all of them, and I will just sit back and have popcorn.
And it's a bitch.
And it's a bitch. So let me tell you about Genene Jones.
Oh, Genene's the new Karen.
And I'm going to tell you, normally I use last names, but I just had to keep Genene in this episode because Genene, a lot of you know, I have different levels. Bunny boilers. This bitch is above bunny boiler. So I need people to give me a new title for people who are above bunny boilers, because I ain't got one.
Kangaroo killer.
No, I need something bigger.
The alliteration makes it very difficult. Gorilla. Yep, got nothing. Continue.
Yeah. So somebody at me with that, because I need something better. So Genene Jones was a seemingly ordinary nurse. She began her career in healthcare with noble intentions, as most nurses do, to help and heal. But as time went on, a dark and sinister side of her emerged, leaving not only a trail of death, but huge devastation in Texas. Okay. So she was born in July of 1950. She was immediately adopted at birth. So her mother gave her up after delivery. Yeah. And she, guys, don't laugh at this, but she was adopted by Dick Jones and his wife, Gladys, and they were a nightclub owner. But I'm sorry, I'm like, Dick adopted.
I love how that name has made such a transition to where Dick didn't want to be called Richard, but now Richard does not want to be called Dick.
Yeah.
And it's just.
But he is Dick Jones. He's not Richard. He is Dick Jones, and his wife's name is Gladys, and they decided to name their daughter Genene. I don't know why, but it's 1950. But they adopted her. They also adopted 3 other children. So apparently,
wow,
they decided to adopt children for whatever reason instead of having their own.
I mean, if his name was Dick, why didn't he go by Dickie then? Got to change it. Everyone changes their name.
That's what I changed the spelling of my name. That counts, right? But Genene grew up outside of San Antonio with her parents. Now, her dad, I have to tell you, he was interesting. So he was an entrepreneur and a professional gambler. He owned nightclubs, restaurants, all of these things. He actually got arrested at one point in time for stealing the safe of one of his wealthy customers who was in his nightclub. He went and robbed his house.
Oh my God.
That's amazing.
It is kind of
That's
amazing.
I was like,
It's
that's
like-
kind of cool. But there was enough evidence. They dropped all the charges. But Genene was like 10 years old when that happened. But I'm still like, that can cause an impact.
Oh, just a little bit.
That is the most tragic thing reported in this woman's life.
Yeah.
Okay. So why she turned out to be the way she was, who knows? But she was known to be an expert liar and manipulator at the age of 10.
Oh, that's not a good thing.
10.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty early, but so she was only close out of all of her siblings. She was really close to Travis, who was her younger brother. Now, Travis accidentally killed himself at the age of 14
Oh.
while building a pipe bomb in his dad's shop at home.
All right. Less
Kids are
less
dumb.
awe, more what the hell.
I mean, that's
I mean,
awful, but oh
it
my
is.
God.
But I'm like, in Texas, at 14, I never said, hey, let me go out to dad's shop and build a pipe bomb.
Times
So
be
I'm not
different.
quite sure why you go and do that because this is the 70s
Yeah.
at this point. It's not like you had the internet to go tell you exactly how to do it.
You had to like go find the anarchist cookbook if it existed yet.
Right. So, but anyway, that put her in a deep depression, which it would any child, but plus
Yeah.
that was her closest sibling. And then her dad about 13 or 14 months after Travis did from cancer.
A lot of loss.
So a lot of loss. So I kind of struggle with the fact that all of the reports I read, they're like, she had a perfectly normal childhood with not a lot of trauma.
I call bullshit. Like that's some serious trauma.
Like you find out your mother gave you up at birth immediately. There's trauma within that.
Yeah.
Then your brother, then your dad. So then Genene was a senior in high school and tried to convince her mother that she should get married while she was in high school because she needed the love.
So she just wanted to have sex then?
Well, mom stood up and said, Gladys said, nuh-uh, you're not doing it. And I'm not giving you my permission. So
No.
she didn't get married until right after high school. And this guy, he has so many first names. I don't know what to do with it. But she married James Jimmy Harvey Delaney Jr.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, peace from the south.
It sounds like,
like-
you were literally listing off children, but no.
That's what I thought. It was like,
All
was
of
he
his-
4 people?
So was it just that their parents had 4 kids and they just yelled all the names so all the kids thought that was their name?
I don't know, but apparently he was overweight, wasn't a real popular guy, and she told him she was pregnant. So he said, okay, I'll marry you. They got
That's
married.
always worrisome.
Well, then after several months, he was like, yeah, now I got to figure out how to feed me, take care of us. So he signed up for the military, went into the Navy, and it was almost instantaneous that he left for basic training, that her appetite for sex got in the way. And she went out, and did her thing and spread a little bit of her pollen around because she wasn't really
That's a
pregnant.
good way to put it. She might have been after that.
So Genene realized she needed to support herself while her husband's off in the military. So she went to beauty school, and she did not become a beauty school dropout. She actually finished.
Good for her.
Wow.
So she actually became a beautician at the hospitals for patients.
Interesting.
Yeah. It leads into some not so great things, but yeah, I mean, I love the fact that, because I can tell you when I was at MD Anderson and going through cancer treatments, I loved the fact that they had somebody there who was used to working with hair that was going through all the chemicals. So
Yeah.
when I first started, I was like, that's really cool that was her specialty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Well, good news is when James Jimmy Harvey Delaney came home, they actually had a child. So she actually got pregnant, they had a child, and they stayed married for about 4 years.
Okay, that's
Well,
pretty good.
so I'm like, that's not terrible because considering how old she was,
Yeah, it's
18.
way too early to get married. Way too early.
Well, shortly after she got divorced, her older brother died of cancer.
Jesus.
I know. So she's had bang, bang, bang. But she decided she wanted to pursue nursing. You know, she was driven by that desire to care for others and make a difference in their lives. Dad died from cancer, brother died from cancer. She wanted to go do something. And she was pregnant with her second child. And she was worried working with chemicals as a hairstylist that she could get cancer.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? At this point, she sounds awesome. I mean, it sounds like she's going great.
She did great. She finished school, got a job. So then, sadly, after being on staff for 8 months at her first job in San Antonio, she was fired due to patient complaints saying she was rude, but also she wouldn't follow the instructions of the charge nurse and she would do what she felt was best for the patient, not what the doctor said.
Yep. That whole I'm smarter than you. Yeah, know it all from young people. Yep. We all know
So,
what that's like.
part of me is like, okay, I get it if you stand up for your patients and you've got their best interests at heart, but you're not a doctor.
Yeah. And
Not
also,
a doctor.
because we're talking about her, probably not the patients.
We're going to
she's thinking
learn
about.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, she wasn't. She wasn't. So she worked in several hospitals and clinics throughout her career, but it was during her time at Bexar County Hospital in San Antonio that her actions started getting people's attention and raising their eyebrows and led to a whole lot of suspicion. So, kind of like in JT's case, patients under her care started number of explained emergencies and deaths. So, all of a sudden, people who came in for minor things wound up needing to be resuscitated.
Son of a, like, that's not good. That's not good. You want people to come in and have good treatment.
Like I said, so now after all this, I'm questioning what I'm going to do if I'm in the hospital again, but that's okay. So she was known to disobey orders and she did what she thought was best. So she would have been terminated, except for the head nurse really liked her and kind of gave her some protection. She was always like, oh, no, she's nice. She's great. She works overtime. She doesn't make us pay her for it. She's always on call.
Oh, so they just like to take advantage of her because she's willing to be walked all over. Okay.
Yeah. So, well, then a new director was hired in 1981 at the hospital, and he loved her passion and the fact that she loved to work with seriously ill patients. Yeah, just take a deep breath because he was so impressed that he ignored the alarming fact that children with non-fatal conditions started dying when she was on staff. So much so that the other nurses started calling her shifts when she was on shift. They would say, oh, it's going to be the death shift.
Oh, that is not good. When other staff members saying this is going to be the death shift, you know something's wrong.
I know. So one fellow nurse who we're just going to call her Davis because she's had a lot of people come at her for testifying. I never knew that there was like a code, kind of like you have for police officers. We're supposed to have their back. Apparently, nurses, there's some type of thing like that. So this woman who testified against her got death threats and all kind of stuff. So we're just going to call her Davis. But
I hate bullshit like that.
I don't get it because I mean, I like you, I like JT, but guess what? You do something wrong, I ain't got your back.
No, yeah, same, yeah. I wouldn't have the back for family members.
If we're burying Mac's husband, you know, I expect you to have my back. But other than that, no. But these are children we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she worked in the pediatric ward. And I think I forgot to mention that. But this nurse was constantly saying, guys, we have a constant need to resuscitate children when she's on shift. She's not on shift. We don't have any code blues.
Yeah, that's definitely that's a worrisome trend.
And Genene would get excited and seem to get a thrill out of calling parents to tell them their children died.
Oh, that's brutal.
You thought that was bad? She was also overheard on multiple occasions announcing to the staff, hey guys, tonight is the night, when she thought one of her children were not going to make it. And sure enough, every time she said it, a child died.
Yeah, it's not giving anything away, is it?
Yeah. No crazy there, right?
No.
No crazy there. Well, and I will, at the end of my story, I've got a couple of, I'll give you the kids' names and some things just because I think it's respectful to give that information.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
Jose Flores was a 6-month-old who was admitted to the hospital for fever, vomiting, and diarrhea. People, if you've had kids, that's pretty common shit.
Yeah, that's a Wednesday, right, JT?
I'm like, that happens. However, while in Genene's,
Monday, but yeah,
exactly, and Thursday and Friday, but
Depends how many kids you've got.
that's true. Because if you got several, but yeah, but poor Jose, while in Genene's care, started suffering from seizures and went into cardiac arrest. 6 months old.
that's not a thing that happens out of the.
So it took doctors almost an hour to save Jose.
Oh my God.
So they found that Jose's blood was not clotting, but they couldn't figure out why. There was not a medical condition that told them that this shit should be happening. Was it hephiliac? There was no reason. He came in for fever, vomiting, and diarrhea. Flu kind of type symptoms.
Yeah. Being a kid.
However,
Yeah.
he turned around and he was doing much better
Until.
while Genene was off shift.
Yeah.
Kind of like in JT's case, Genene came back on shift and was once again in charge of Jose's care. Under her care, he went into seizures, and again, his heart stopped, and he was unable to be saved this time. Guys, it gets worse.
They had already saved him and then let her back in his presence.
It gets worse. So, upon hearing of his son's death, Mr. Flores had a heart attack in the hospital waiting room when he was told. So, while they were helping him to the emergency room, Genene took Jose's body, picked him up, and started running through the hospital to take him to the morgue herself, as staff and family was chasing her and trying to stop her.
What the actual
Fired.
Well, apparently it raised a little bit of suspicion. So the hospital decided, maybe we should run some tests. Something's not right here. Is it child abuse? Did the parents do something? Is that why the dad had such a response? What was it? Well, they discovered that Jose had been given an overdose of heparin. And they couldn't figure out how, because he was never prescribed heparin and should not have ever had heparin in his system.
What is heparin? Do you know?
So heparin,
Blood thinner, right?
It's a blood thinner.
Oh, okay.
So they give it to you. So like if you have blood clots, they'll give it to you to kind of thin your blood. But what was interesting is while they were doing those tests, Genene took some time off a little bit because she started having health issues herself and went to see several doctors, yet nothing was ever diagnosed. And a lot of the other nurses, the one who called her death shift, thought she was doing it for sympathy or maybe to distract them for looking at her due to Jose's death.
I could see it being that for sure.
So, Genene started hearing other staff members talk about her and the numerous death and complications, because Jose was the first one that really kind of raised alarms. It had been happening, but Nothing. They weren't sure. She decided that she was going to start blackmailing the hospital and the doctors because she took copies of all the records and she knew exactly what happened to the children. And she was going to prove which doctors killed the children. And still nothing was done. The hospital just said, she wasn't feeling well. She was distraught over his death. We're just going to let it go.
That's complicit at that point.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So then Rolando Santos, a 1-month-old infant, was admitted for pneumonia, but suddenly he started having seizures, unexplained bleeding, and went into cardiac arrest. All of the issues happened when Genene was on staff. When she was not on staff, Rolando would improve, be great, almost ready for discharge. She would come back on and he would just go down, and it kept intensifying. He actually went into a coma, a coma and a cardiac arrest. Pediatrician was able to save him. And this pediatrician is a freaking amazing person. He saved him. He then had him removed from the pediatric ICU floor and put under 24-hour surveillance.
Good.
Rolando improved and was sent home with his parents and is still alive today.
Yeah, sometimes you get lucky.
That pediatrician complained. Still, nothing happened. Nothing. So she continued working. It wasn't until after multiple infants died and several had drug overdoses that were saved that the administration decided, we need to do a formal inquiry here into her patients and see what's going on. However, the fear of negativity and publicity stopped them from performing a formal inquiry. And instead, just like JT's case, they transferred her out of the pediatric unit.
I would rather know that this happened and they stopped it than to have this just continue to happen.
Good news for the hospital. She was pissed that they transferred her from working with children. So she resigned.
I want to keep killing kids is what she's thinking.
Well, guess what? Did not stop her from working, because nowhere did they put on the file, we suspect she did this, and this. She went on and got hired by Dr. Kathleen Holland. And Dr. Holland, I'm sorry, you're complicit and you deserve everything you got. And I am okay going on record to say that. She worked with Genene at the hospital in San Antonio, moved to Kerrville, Texas, opened her own pediatric clinic, hired Genene to come and work for her.
Knowing that's complicit.
All of the issues. She even testified for her in their little inquiry thing that they decided not to do. So she knew 100%.
That's terrible.
So now it wasn't in a hospital, it was in a clinic. But within months of Genene starting as the nurse at the new clinic, 7 children began suffering from unexplained seizures and had to be treated at Sid Peterson Hospital. The hospital was suspicious that so many children with unexplained seizures came from that same clinic, not from other clinics in the area, but from this one clinic.
Yeah.
That just opened with this nurse. So Dr. Holland said, it's just a coincidence. We work with children and a lot of them have issues. It's just coincidence.
Doubt it.
The death of Chelsea McClellan, who her parents are angels in this whole story. So her death kind of woke Dr. Holland up. And Dr. Holland started looking into the suspicious deaths. And she was like, okay, I need to look into something. Chelsea wasn't very ill. She had a very minor thing, went to go to the ER at the hospital, should have been home. And she died.
Yeah.
I mean, this was after colleagues, had begun questioning, why all these things are happening. Why does it only happen when she is working or only the patients that she touches? Not all these others. Now, during the investigation, the investigative committee, so in Texas, when you open an investigation, they put a full committee in it. So it's not just one or two people. You have a full committee looking into different things. Well, they found that 2 bottles of, Lord help me, I can't say this, but I'm going to try succinylcholine. It's a muscle relaxant. Never had it, and I've had a lot of drugs, but it's one. But it had been used. They found in the practice 2 bottles that supposedly had never been used, but there was a hole on the top of the vial. And the bottles, when tested, had been filled with saline in the stockroom.
Oh, shit. So even worse, because if someone needed that, they'd be getting saline.
Exactly. So they decided to exhume Chelsea's body. Chelsea's family said, yes, whatever you need to do. She had been given an overdose of succinylcholine. Another thing, pharmaceutical companies, can you make the words a little bit easier for us normal people to say?
But they sure are fun to make fun of.
Well, that's why, acetaminophen is Tylenol. They usually have those like names for us plebes.
Yeah, this one couldn't find any simple mans, but during the investigation, they found a terrifying web because they revealed that Genene Jones had been intentionally harming her patients and administering lethal doses of medication. That was not the only medication that she had been giving them. Heparin, that, and then Dialgan she had been given. So they still to this day do not know why she wanted to do this.
Prey on the vulnerable.
But before they could take action against her, Genene called Dr. Holland from the emergency room, telling her she had taken an overdose of doxepin and that she had to have her stomach pumped.
I'd be like, show me the receipts.
Don't pump it.
It turned out she lied. And there was only 4 pills in her stomach when they pumped it, and she had faked all of the symptoms.
Fakes pregnancy, fakes overdose.
I know. It's like, do we see a pattern here? But remember, she had no trauma in her childhood.
No,
that matters. No. But so Dr. Holland went on to fire her, but it was too late. Dr. Holland lost her privileges.
Yeah,
at the hospital. And families left her practice and no longer wanted to see her. And guys, as a mom, I am okay with all of that because she knew. I believe in second chances, not when people are dying.
As someone who never wants kids, I support that because, it's so wrong.
It's just wrong. Well, even her husband divorced her.
Good.
So she literally lost everything. And all of it was because people held her accountable for hiring her, knowing the suspicions around her, and that they called her Dr. Death Shift. Now, Dr. Holland did also find that Genene had all the documentation and was trying to frame her and blame the deaths on her.
Oh, fuck. And I mean, they both worked at the same hospital before, too. So, like, almost plausible, too.
So, I mean, Genene, she wasn't stupid. She
evil, but not stupid.
She was evil, but not stupid. Well, this is where it gets very interesting in Texas. Gotta love Texas sometimes. And then you got to tell Texas they're fucking on drugs. And I can say that.
I can't do that because you can't mess with Texas.
No, you can. They're on drugs right now.
Did you know that was actually an anti-littering campaign originally?
It is because born and raised here, I grew up, and at one point in time, we did trash pickup back when I was in high school. Don't mess with Texas. And it was to get people to stop littering.
I just heard that in a podcast recently, and I'm like,
yeah, it used to be a thing to be proud to say I was born and raised in Texas. Now, not so much. I can say I was born and raised in Texas because I left Texas, lived 4 years in California, 4 years in Vegas. So I got outside of the box, and I can tell you Texas is on drugs. They're on drugs.
I mean, BC's on drugs too, but just because it's legal. But
Yeah, we're on
it's
the bad
different.
drugs.
Jesus.
We're on the bad drugs. We're not on the
Yeah.
good drugs.
No.
So on October 12th, 1982, a grand jury in Kerrville convened and they were looking into 8 children from Dr. Holland's clinic and the death of Chelsea McClellan. Then in February of 1983, while the other grand jury was still convening and looking into everything, the grand jury in San Antonio convened to look into 47 suspicious deaths of children in Bexar County, where she worked prior to the clinic.
Oh,
Now, several of her coworkers testified against her. Now, the grand jury indicted Jones on 1 count of murder in Kerrville and several charges of injury to children because no one saw her actually put the medications into the children.
yeah. Plausible deniability.
That's what they went with. But she would face up to 99 years in prison for it. So not a bad sentence, right?
That amazes me. Like, you can't prove anything, but you're still going to get 99 years.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
they kind of could prove, the one murder
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
it went to trial. But then the San Antonio grand jury indicted her for injury to a child for the injection she gave. But they left it open to say she's under suspicion and investigation for many other deaths at the hospital. And that becomes very important because in February of 1984, she was convicted of murder and was given the maximum sentence of 99 years in Kerrville, Texas. Then in October, she was found guilty of injuring Rolando Santos by injection. She was sentenced to another 60 years. So that's a total of 159 years with the possibility of parole.
Yeah.
At that time, they were unable to try her for the other deaths in Bexar County because the hospital, against subpoena orders, shredded over 9,000 pounds of patient records.
What the absolute hell? Like,
So,
that is
Think
terrible.
about 9,000 pounds of shredded documents. That's a lot of documents.
It's a lot of boxes of documents.
Sounds like they weren't maintaining their files for a certain number of years and then dumping them. They just saw the first part and said, I can do that. And
But remember, this
Or
was
whatever.
also the hospital that suspected, but they're like, yeah, she's too nice. She comes in all the time. She does this. We don't want bad publicity. We're just going to transfer her. So
Yeah.
very complicit.
You're going to transfer those files to the shredder.
Yeah. So she came up for parole after serving 10 years. Hallelujah. Her parole was denied.
yeah.
However, being the great state of fucking Texas, she was scheduled for mandatory release due to the Texas prisons being overcrowded in 2018. Why are we overcrowded? Because we put you in prison for 50 years if you have a joint. That's why our prisons are overcrowded. So we're going to let out this woman who kills children before you're going to let out the drug convicts.
Of course. Because they're probably people of color.
I live here and I don't get it.
Yeah.
So to prevent this from happening, luckily, the state had said she's still under suspicion and investigation for these other charges. They were kind of leaving it as their trump card to keep this from happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they decided to indict her and charge her for the murder of 11-month-old Joshua Sawyer. And they were going to go ahead and file additional charges for the other deaths. 97 potential charges.
Good.
And she agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of murder in exchange for the other murder charges being dropped. And she was really upset because she did not want to be known as a serial killer.
Well, then don't be a fucking serial killer.
Come on.
So, but because they dropped those other charges, she felt She's not charged with more than 2 murders. I'm not a serial killer. I'll agree to it. Now,
I hate people.
I'm just going to tell you, we put people to death in Texas. I don't know why. And I could not find why she was not eligible for that. Because in my book, you killed a child.
Yeah, I mean, I'm against the death penalty, but my God,
I am
if
too.
someone was worthy of the death penalty.
If you are 100% sure she did this, but I don't know why. So she agreed. So, and she would not be eligible for parole until roughly 2038 and should be almost 90 years old. So that was part of the deal. You agree, we'll drop these other charges, but she's not eligible for parole until then. And she has to let the families give their impact statement.
Okay, well, at least there's that. But
so, yeah. So, Texas State Judge Frank Castro told Genene, your life sentence doesn't come close to what you did to these families and the tragedy you caused. You took God's precious gift, babies who are defenseless and innocent. I truly believe your ultimate judgment is in the next life. Genene Jones remained silent, showed no expressions during the sentencing from the judge. And as Joshua Sawyer's mom told her, I'm glad that you will never see daylight. I hope you live a long and miserable life behind bars. She just sat there quietly with a grin on her face.
And those words are why I don't support the death penalty, because they should suffer behind bars for people like that.
Well, listen, it's much easier to give somebody access to what you're talking about versus training them for the other job, right? That's how that works. He said knowingly.
Yeah.
We don't have to put them to death, just put them in a population that it will naturally happen, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind, Genene Jones was the mother to 2 children, a boy and a girl, both of whom, thankfully, she left in the care of her mother and she did not raise them.
That's good.
So now, provided some information about her killings, but I wanted to give you a small chronological overview of some of the known killings that she at some point in time honestly admitted to. Chelsea McClellan in 1982, she was a 15-month-old baby. She was injected with a lethal dose of succinylcholine, a muscle relaxant. Rolando Santos, who was an 8-month-old baby, also in Bexar County, she administered the exact same drug into his system. Patrick Zavala, 1982, a 4-month-old baby, same hospital, was injected with heparin, and he died due to complications. Rosemary Vega, also 1982, a 2-month-old baby who was injected with multiple toxic substances, which caused cardiac arrest and excessive bleeding. Richard Ricky Nelson was a 2-year-old boy, also in 1982, was administered a fatal dose of succinylcholine. Joshua Sawyer was the 4-month-old baby who was injected with a toxic substance that they couldn't identify, but also had heparin and succinylcholine in his system. Rosemary Smith, a 4-year-old girl who was also given a lethal dose of we're just going to call it succinylcholine, however you say it.
Use the initials.
Diana was a 10-month-old baby who was also given a fatal dose of succinylcholine. So those are just a few of the confirmed cases that she told other people or documented that she actually killed them. So they estimate over 100 children potentially that suffered from her, 30 to 40 deaths, but 90 plus of kids under her care that went into cardiac arrest and had to be saved.
Awful.
Gross.
And she's sitting in a Texas prison and apparently gets a lot of fan mail from guys who want to marry her.
Why are people so messed up? Like, why would you want to ever talk to, in that way, a murderer? Like, why?
And why do they have the ability to go to a library thing and do email things? Like, I could send her an email. Why do you have that ability? So the families,
I'd be happy to send her an email, but it wouldn't be very nice.
agree. Now, they say that by the time that she potentially could get out, because of how long it's been, the families, the parents of all of the children most likely will no longer be living. So if she does get out when she's 90 years old, the parents most likely will not be around to see that. But the fact that she's even eligible for parole in the state of Texas, I do not understand.
Well, I don't think a lot of people live to 90 in prison, so it's not like the healthcare is great in prison.
True. But that's my case. And I'm just going to tell you, I did not enjoy it. I could have probably lived the rest of my life without ever knowing about this person. And considering I now live in the Austin area, which is very close to San Antonio, Bexar County, I'm thankful my children were not born here because it's too close for comfort.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think hospitals need to do better. Nowhere did I find that any of the administrators were held accountable. The hospital was not held accountable. They made changes, fired some people, but nowhere is it documented that they made settlements or did anything. Yeah. And I think that in some ways is a bigger travesty, because if they protected this one nurse, who else are they protecting?
Yeah. And they didn't fire people at the top. They probably fired people that had no way to actually cause any changes.
So we'll never know. And the fact that she has no sympathy, she has no remorse.
No.
Ugh.
That's my case. So I'm just going to say, stay safe. Question your nurses and your doctors before they give you medication. Ask to see the vials. And if you're there with your kids, ask questions.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it's always better to ask questions.
Ask questions. You know what? If you look like a fool, I'd rather look like a fool and have my kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Or your own life.
Yeah.
That's all I got, guys.
Crazy. Well, I'm sad to say my case next week will actually probably be worse. It's a ramp up.
Oh, God. I didn't think it could get worse.
Oh,
here we are.
It does, unfortunately.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Stay safe, watch out for crime, and enjoy wine time. Toodles.
Or beer time. Bye.
I want to say our episode today was researched by Terry Dussault. Our theme music is by Gold. If you want to support me in true crime and wine time, please go to your favorite podcast app and review us. Honest reviews are always appreciated. You can also interact with me directly on our Facebook page at True Crime and Wine Time, or on Twitter at Terry True Crime. Thank you for listening to True Crime and Wine Time. Until next week, stay safe, watch out for crime, and enjoy your wine time.
Do you have to throw on your favorite true crime podcast before bed in order to fall asleep? Same. And it's the very reason that I created Serial Napper. My name is Nikki Young, and I'm here to lull you to sleep, or perhaps to give you nightmares with some of the craziest true crime stories that you've never heard of. Each episode of Serial Napper features a different true crime story told succinctly the way that it happened. Just the facts, ma'am. My focus is on unsolved crimes that need more attention, cold cases, and wrongful convictions. While true crime shows can sometimes be graphic in nature, I ensure that the story is told in a way that is respectful to the victims and their families. Now, when it's time for bed, you can look forward to 30 minutes of well-researched and detailed case files while you get your beauty sleep. Find Serial Napper on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Sweet dreams.
Oh, geez. All right, you ready to go, Terry?
Ready?
That's
I'm
my
gonna
porn
hit.
name.
I'm
Mackerel
gonna hit
are
play on the
fire.
intro.
JT, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
No, I'm not talking.
I'm like, your face says a lot.
Yep, yep, yep. It's one of those things where I can't think of something reasonable to say in response.
That's okay. It
I
gets
can just
better.
make faces. Oh, good. Oh, Grant.
Succinal muxoral. It's top stick.
Oh my. Do you have any sign
Well,
out you usually do, or
Oh, did you say butane?
beer time? Yes.
Oh, brew time. I thought you said butane. I was like,
No,
what?
beer time. Beer time.
Okay.